I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Caitriona Balfe, who stars as Ma in Kenneth Branagh's semi-autobiographical coming-of-age fable, Belfast. Caitriona, it's great to have you back again at Gold Derby. I think this movie resonates with a lot of people personally, whether it's about their own story or about, it reminds them of their own family. I'm just wondering what the movie means to you, particularly the experience of shooting it and then, of course, seeing it on the big screen.
Yeah, oh God, this movie has been so special. When I first read the script, I mean, I was in bits emotionally. There's a lot of things, and it's hard to sort of pinpoint which one was the most sort of evocative personally. I mean, there's a lot of my mother that I sort of recognized in it, and a lot of her story. But being someone who left Ireland and hasn't really returned, I felt all of that too. But filming it was really special. We filmed right at the end of the first lockdown, and right before we sort of managed to squeeze in right before the second one started again. And I think, that was such a gift. A lot of people did a lot of amazing things, like Ken writing this incredible script during the first lockdown. But I really struggled mentally. In it, I was very lucky. Everyone I know was safe, but it was a tough time, I think, for a lot of people. And when you get the opportunity to come out of that and be able to put all of yourself into a project, I mean, it just felt so special. And now, having shown it and it's resonating with people, being able to take my mom to the first film premiere she's ever come to with me, which was in Belfast, all of these things, it all feels like such a gift that I've been given, and I'm sort of not sure why I've gotten so lucky. So it's really just been great.
That's so lovely. People forget after that first lockdown how challenging it was and how difficult. And many of us thought, oh, are we ever going to see really great movies again? Are we just going to be stuck in this nightmare forever? It's so great that you're able to be back on set and make a film this special. What was the sense like on set? It looks like the cast got along really well. Like, from all the cast members I've spoken to so far, it sounds like it was a really lovely experience actually on set too.
It was. We had a lot of very strict protocols. I think we were one of the first films to go up. So we were getting tested every day. Everyone was wearing masks. We had one-way systems. We had different zones, all of those things. But there was something about the fact that it was a small crew, a small cast. I think there was just a desire to connect from everybody, possibly because of the time. But I also think all of us, we share our Irishness, a lot of us. We shared just a kind of an essence, I guess. I don't know, like, we're all quite similar people in a weird way. I have just fallen in love with every single one of the people I worked with on this movie, on crew as well. Like, I know I have friends now that I've made on this film that I will have for the rest of my life. And I don't think you can always walk away from a film and say that. And there was just, I think there's sometimes a little bit of magic has to happen when you make film, and this had a little bit of magic. And we just all did a Q&A earlier, and it's just when we all see each other again, you just feel so happy. So I don't know, it's just such a lovely thing.
That's beautiful. Some films really click because of that rapport that you can kind of sense. And there was something really enchanting about that family, or the main cast members in particular, and Jude, who we spoke about offline. He's just such an amazing little kid. He had some beautiful things to say about you. Were you surprised that this very young actor debuting in a feature was so wonderful in this movie?
I mean, no, because we were working with him and you could see how he was day to day. I mean, he's such an engaged, he's like, even when you're speaking with him, he's the kind of kid who like looks you in the eye and engages with you, and is just such a he's just such an animated, bright little force on his own. And when, you know, there was one day, Jamie and I were watching the monitor when we were doing a scene, and we were both like, wow, you know, he just, like, his face just lights up the screen, and it's just all so natural. And so was I surprised when I saw the film and saw how amazing he was? Not really. But I also, you know, that's because we were blown away by him, like, sort of day to day on set.
Yeah, so you're just waiting for the rest of us to catch up with what you.
But also, you know, I think that that's, Ken is such an amazing director. And, you know, sort of to go back to your last question as well, you know, this film was so special to Ken. And I think that he was so happy that he was getting to make this story the way he wanted at this time, that he brought on this infectious joy and, I guess, wonder. You know, he sort of had this childlike wonder about him as well when he was making it, you know, that he was getting to recreate all of this, you know, memories of his childhood, and bring it all, and you know, bring it to another place. And I think that that permeated through everyone, you know. And I think that Ken likes to surround himself with good people, and he works with the same people over and over again. He has the most beautiful, respectful relationship with his crew. And I think all of that, you know, it always comes from the top down, right? And Ken was our, you know, wonderful, fearless leader from, you know, from day one, obviously.
Yeah, he is such an amazing filmmaker. I'm so happy he's really getting some really amazing attention after so many years behind the camera. He wrote Ma with such love, obviously. She's the ultimate maternal carer, the rock of the family. And I would have thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're taking on a role like that, there's got to be some, not pressure, but expectation to get it right. Was there anything in particular that you did to be able to understand how to play her authentically?
Well, you know, the beauty of this script when I first read it, you know, I think very often, and this is written so often as well, it's kind of like, well, the stay-at-home mother role, right? It's a two-dimensional role, or blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I think not only does that do a disservice to all the women who stay at home and work bloody hard, but I think a lot of people don't give them their fair due. And one thing that was apparent in this script was how much respect and admiration Ken had for what his mother did and what women do. And I think, you know, he really, there was so much in that role that sort of, you know, respected the weight of what the weight of the burden that women often carry when they are left to kind of look after the family and look after the extended family and deal with all of the things day to day when, and not that it didn't cost Pa anything to go away and work, but, you know, I think Ken had an equal amount of empathy for both of those two characters, which is not always the case when you get a script. And in terms of what I did, you know, I was very lucky. There's a wealth of footage from that specific time in Belfast and those specific streets. You know, and I spent hours on YouTube scrolling and finding various different interviews of women from Belfast. You know, and it's a city I've spent time in. I have very good friends from there. I grew up on the border, which, you know, I'm so close to Northern Ireland. You know, I know those women. And, you know, I don't know if it was necessarily an expectation or feeling the, you know, the pressure to get it right. I just really wanted to, I don't know, just honor them in a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, I was terrified going into this job just purely because of all the people I was going to be working with. And I definitely felt like the kind of the kid of the bunch, even though Jamie Dornan's younger than me, but anyway. But, you know, they have so much experience and have been in the industry for so much longer than I have. And but it was, I think day one, Ken got Judy, Kieran, Jamie and myself in a room. And we just sat around and we discussed our childhoods and our parents and our grandparents. And, you know, immediately then you're all sort of on a level, and you know Judi Dench as a child rather than Judi Dench, the kind of titan of British, you know, theatre and world cinema and all those things. So it was an amazing, yeah, it was an amazing leveler, and it was an amazing way, I think, of getting us all to bond and to take away that pressure, I think.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a great story. I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive into some of your highlight scenes if we can, because there was a few that really I found just so, just really moved me. For example, I don't know if you remember, but you probably do, obviously, but there's a beautiful shot of you with Jamie to the side, lamenting the decision of whether to stay in Belfast or to leave. A lot of what Ma is going through is this push and pull about whether to go or not. I'm just wondering, before I go into like the scenes that really affected me, like that one, is there any scene in particular that you always think back to as your highlight, or the scene that really moved you the most, or what you enjoyed doing, or whatever?
Well, I think when I first read the scene on the bus, that was definitely the scene where I sort of understood a lot about Ma. You know, this idea of her fears and what is sort of, what a little girl she had inside, you know, that in her street, in her small little, you know, 3 or 4 streets in this community, she was, you know, in control. She was kind of glamorous. She was well known, and she could sort of do anything within that parameter. But anything outside of that, she just was incapable of even imagining what it would be like, or she could imagine, but she just didn't have the confidence or the capacity to sort of see herself surviving outside of this place, which I thought was such an interesting sort of seesaw within her, you know, that kind of push and pull of this frightened little girl and yet this kind of very confident woman. So that was one that I kind of was relishing, because you know, it's a beautifully written scene. It's like a great moment as an actor to be able to kind of like express yourself in that way. But there's another scene, and it's just, you know, it floors me every time, and you know, it's mostly Jamie's sort of scene, but it's when he thanks Ma for raising the boys. And I just, you know, that gets to me every single time. I think it's the most beautiful, you know, romantic, but heartbreaking scene, because you know how tough it is for them. It's hard raising a family, and they you know, you just really feel that, and yet, you know, his appreciation and his ability to see what she does for them was really beautiful.
Yeah, even without the troubles are surrounding them, just raising a family in itself is so challenging. I'm so glad you raised that scene. Just to set it up for the audience, you know, Pa says, we can't be with them 24 hours a day. We can't take their child away either. You look away from Pa, Ma looks away from Pa, and you see it wash over your face. You don't say anything, but you could see the guilt and uncertainty, anxiety, and the stubborn acknowledgement. And it's not until Pa says, what you've done with these two, it's phenomenal, that you snap out of that feeling, turn to him and ask, what are you talking about? And he thanks Ma for raising the kids, and then leaves. And then you go over to the sleeping kids on the couch. You barely say anything, and yet so much is going on over your face. I always turn to that scene as my favorite as well. I'm so glad you raised it. It's really good.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, you know, again, it has to be in the writing, you know, and I think Ken has such empathy and compassion for all of these characters, but you know, for his, you know, for Ma and Pa, it's so beautiful, because I think you constantly feel for both of them and the struggle that both of them are in, and it's a beautiful thing as an actor, because both of you always have something to do. You know, I think sometimes there's, you know, you can be like, oh, that's your scene, and not that you sort of check out or
Yeah,
anything like that. You don't, but you know that you're sort of in service to something else. Whereas these were always, there was always so much going on for both, you know, for every character, you know.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like Jamie's doing quite a lot in that scene, obviously, but I think the scene revolves around Ma and how she is coming to terms with the fact that I think leaving is probably the best way, which then leads to the monologue in Close Up, where she says, I asked myself, what the hell am I doing? And she finally concedes it's time to pack their bags and find a better life. There's a lot of tears in that. And the camera's right on you. And like, you know, it's just like, okay, here we go, Caitriona, it's your moment. Do you recall doing that scene? It was a while ago now, but what was that like?
Oh yeah, no, I remember doing that. I think maybe that was, you know, it's funny because that was such a tight close up. We didn't have Jamie or the boys in the room at that moment, and I am not someone who usually likes to do that. You know, I'm very much, I like to feed off my fellow actor. I think it's, you know, there's some actors who can kind of be like, oh, it's fine, you know, I'll just do it to a post-it, and I'm always like, what? Oh, so it's not my favorite way of working, just because I lean on my other actors a lot, and but again, you know, this was such an important moment of decision for Ma. You know, she had scared herself, I think, past any, you know, I think sometimes when you're blocked and you don't let yourself sort of step into the unknown, sometimes it takes a shove, and that was a real shove, that moment of what happened. And obviously, you know, she's obviously pregnant now as well, so there's that, you know, it's compounding, everything's just, all of the pressures have sort of come to that point and it's popped. And I think that you know, she finally realized that she's been holding on to this not ridiculous, but she's been holding on to this sort of security blanket of this place. But this place is no longer safe, and it's no longer safe for her boys. It's no longer safe for her. It's no longer safe for her unborn child. So she has to step beyond herself. And yeah, and you know, I working with Ken, I mean, we were obviously working so close with that scene, and I just remember he wanted stillness. You know, Ken loves real stillness and just letting the text and letting the emotion sort of speak for itself. Which, when you're that close, you know, you can sometimes feel constrained, but it's also, you know, when you let it just sort of speak for itself, it can actually, you know, I find you sort of don't have to work at anything. It's sort of like you get moved by just speaking the words.
Yeah, yeah. It's that less is more approach. A lot of the film does that, and I think it gave Ma a great arc throughout the whole film. I think your character, you really see quite a progression, and she comes out the end in a better place. Obviously, in the, you know, the dancing scene at the wake was so fun for us as the audience. It was such a release. I think we needed that, and I was completely in awe with the way that scene was shot and edited, and of course the dancing between Jamie and yourself. I mean, it's a kind of a cliche question, but what was the highlight, I suppose, for shooting that scene? Because it looked and felt really, really joyous.
Well, I mean, it's not often you get to have that kind of like Hollywood movie moment, you know, like lifted up in the air and spun around, and it just feels so romantic. And, you know, Jamie and I, like, we neither of us are, I would say, are sort of natural dancers. And but it was great. I mean, it was a way of us really bonding as well. Like, we had these dance rehearsals, but it wasn't always a lot of time. So we'd be like out the side of our trailers, or like at lunchtime, and we would be with Alita, our choreographer. And, you know, we also didn't want them to look so much like a number that it wouldn't be something that Ma and Pa had just picked up themselves, and you know, fun. So it had to feel real and rough enough, but we still had to get the steps right. But it was such a vital moment for that relationship. And, you know, that no matter what was happening, no matter all the stresses, and I loved it. Like there's a moment when Jamie starts singing and Pa's up there and you can just feel like Ma's looking at him like, oh, here we go again. Like, really, are we going to do this kind of showboating? But then it's when he starts singing to her heart melts, you know? And I think that that's always, because I think Pops and Granny have that sort of relationship too, where, and this is Irish women, I think, you know, sometimes we can be tough asses, you know, we can hard and hard exteriors, but like we've got a really soft core. And I think it's like you need these like romantic gestures to sort of pierce our cynicism sometimes, you know. And yeah, I mean, filming it was such a great moment. Like we'd been shooting up to that point, we've been shooting a lot of the sort of core family stuff, so it was a lot of just these smaller, you know, numbers and scenes, and we hadn't been around a lot of people. And then this day we had everybody, and we had all the, you know, actors who were playing all the different parts, and everybody was in this room, and, you know, all amazing actors. And it felt really like a party, you know, except for poor Kieran, who was absent. But it really felt like such a celebration. And I think it's so needed in the movie at that time. It's so needed for Ma and Pa and their relationship. And it's just, yeah, it's just a really beautiful, fun scene.
Yeah, it really is. And I walked out of that screening room that day just feeling really happy and good. And it's just exactly the kind of film that we need right now. Honestly, I really mean that. So we're running out of time now. We really need to quickly talk about Outlander, because, you know, that is like now the second coming. It will have been 656 days.
Oh my God.
Outlander has been off air. I know that because it was my son's 10th birthday, the 10th of May, 2020. So we're going to see it return on the 10th of March next year. Stars has announced it. So that was like a cataclysmic event when that was announced. Now, the show's best season yet ended with all four main characters having suffered some trauma. So, and Stars has released, you know, some like clues about what we're to expect, of disharmony and division. What can you tell us, obviously without spoiling anything? Are you excited about season 6? And
yeah, I'm really excited. I think I got to explore some things with Claire this season that I haven't before. And, you know, when you're talking about a 6th season of a TV show, that you get to find out new things about your character and explore them in a new way, that's like amazing. You know, I think after the events that happened at the end of season 5, we have a long time, or Claire needs a long time to sort of really heal. And I think she's, you know, she might be known to be a little bit stubborn, but you know, I think she doesn't allow herself the sort of time to do that. And I think one of the things that she discovers is that her old way of dealing with things, her old coping mechanisms, mainly compartmentalizing things and not really dealing with them, it doesn't serve her very much anymore. So she's having to discover whole new things about herself. Her and Jamie's relationship is obviously going to have to evolve because of that too. And we have a lot of new people at the Ridge, and this, you know, looming revolutionary war. It's kind of all of these things are happening. There's lots, even though it's a truncated season, there's lots of stuff going on.
There's a lot of, okay, good. We are, you can imagine that everyone is just beside themselves. They can't wait. And look, Caitriona, congratulations on Belfast. I have been saying for years, not just me, lots of people have been saying for years, you've got to look out for that Caitriona. She's such an amazing actor. And here we are. You're in an Oscar frontrunner. And good luck. And thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so good to talk to you as always.